Ladies and gents, boys and girls, what is up? Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023. Hope you are all doing well. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We have got a jam-packed show for you all here on this Tuesday. I see Cameron Blassingame, Bruce, Ethan K, John Edward, Brian Dean, Travi, what's going on? Appreciate you all tuning in. Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel. The TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Again, guys, thank you all so much for the continued love and support. And really excited for the show today. Again, guys, appreciate you all. We got a lot to discuss, a lot to get into, of course. We got our good friend. So JC Sherbert, unfortunately, not joining the show today. I think JC has been content bleeding out the eyeballs for him because of the transfer portal stuff, everything that's been happening over the last week or so. So no JC today. We'll try to reschedule and get him back on. But our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate, he will kick off the show here in just a couple of minutes. So really excited talking to Marc. All things college football, Gamecocks, transfer portal, NIL, everything that's taking place right now. Also, guys, I've been getting a lot of questions on our staff changes coming in Columbia. Is Shane Beamer going to make any moves this offseason when it comes to his staff after a 5-7 campaign in year 3 of his tenure? I'll talk all things that. We'll talk about what I'm hearing in regards to the current staff, what changes could be coming, and the pros and cons of making the moves now versus after the signing day, what have you. Also, guys, we are talking bowl season. I'll power rank the SEC bowl games, which ones I am most excited to watch versus the ones that maybe I kind of label as a snoozer, right? We'll power rank those bowl games. Also talk the Heisman finalists. They are officially out. Who should be the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy? And of course, guys, end of show, we will take your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well in our daily mailbag segment. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support. Guys, let me give you a quick update, by the way. December the 10th, so 5 days from now, December the 10th, is your final day to order merchandise at tsus.store and guarantee by Christmas delivery. So whether it's Clem Sucks, it's Beamer Ball, it's Yardcocks Baseball, whatever it is, whatever collection, whatever you're purchasing, hat, t-shirt, hoodie, long sleeve, whatever it might be, you've got until December the 10th to ensure by Christmas delivery. So do not wait around. Be sure to go ahead, get your merchandise today, and make sure you've got that. So when they wake up on Christmas morning, it's under the tree. And again, appreciate you all the love and support. And guys, you guys supporting our merchandise, the merchandise side of the business. Cannot say thank you all enough. Also, guys, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, what have you, no sound on YouTube is what folks are saying. Greg, I think it might be you because I think you're the only person that's saying that. If there's any issues on YouTube, you guys let me know. All those tuned in on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop new video content as well. Also, we drop daily podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure you check us out there at the Spurs Up Show. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star review, guys. The reviews help boost up the show, help others to find it. So, again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We truly do appreciate you doing that. And again, guys, stay tuned on social media, content bleeding out of the eyeballs as well. Guys, again, be sure you stay tuned for all the changes upcoming over the next, in regards to schedule, changes upcoming over the next couple weeks, obviously with the holiday, with Christmas. You'll probably be traveling. I'll be traveling, seeing family, doing different things, stuff like that. So I know next week already, guys, Thursday and Friday, there will be no TDC because I will be out of town seeing family, as I mentioned. The next week, we should be fine with National Signing Day on that Wednesday. But of course, after that, Christmas is on Monday, December the 25th. that week things will be a little bit sideways because of the Christmas holiday, again, being out of town, stuff like that. So just stay tuned for all the updates when it comes to our schedule and what we're doing content-wise. And again, appreciate you all rolling with the punches. Sorry, I just got a text here and was just checking, see what's going on. Either way, guys, Marc Ryan is going to join us here in just a minute. The transfer portal seems to have slowed down, I would say, just a little bit. It's not quite as crazy as it was yesterday when the portal opened. Obviously, things got kicked off with Kyle McCord jumping in the portal, Walter Nolan at A&M. Of course, we know about Juice Wells at South Carolina. Many others as well. Over 1,000 players, guys. Over 1,000 players entered the transfer portal yesterday. Over 1,000. Think about how crazy that is. But big news for South Carolina. Obviously, Tonka Hemingway is back. Alex Huntley is back. Announced this morning that Luke Doty has signed a deal and that he is back. And I want to talk with Marc Ryan about that, some of the things, guys, because, again, I feel like, before he jumps on, I feel like an old man yelling at clouds. And I posted a clip this morning, and we talked about it yesterday, guys, that, listen, if you're someone that you don't love where college football is at right now because of NIL, I don't necessarily blame you. But it just seems crazy to me that we're at a point in college football where NIL has created such an environment where guys who are supposed to return next year anyways, it's like they have to put out an announcement, right? They have to announce to the world that they're signing a deal and they're coming back like this is professional sports, and they're signing a 1-year contract. Like, you know what? I weighed my options. I looked for greener grass. I couldn't find it. So you know what? I'm back. Like, it's just a weird dynamic, man. Is it not? Like, again, maybe I'm the old man yelling at clouds. Maybe I'm that guy, but it feels like a weird dynamic. It feels like a weird dynamic to me. I got to admit, it feels like a weird dynamic. I don't know. But anyways, South Carolina getting some good news. Over the last 24 hours or so with Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley both back. There's rumors that Mario Anderson is going to turn down the NFL. He may be coming back, what have you. So anyways, guys, the portal, the madness ensuing, the craziness, if you will. So anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's how you can be a part of the show. Would love to hear from you. You can call that number, text that number, whatever you like, and we'll get into our daily mailbag segment later into the show. Guys, continue to flood the YouTube chat, Facebook. We'll get to your questions, like I mentioned, later in the show. And like I said, we got a ton to talk about tomorrow, by the way, guys. Let me give you this update right before we bring Marc Ryan on. Tomorrow, of course, you guys know we've been so locked in on football stuff. We have not touched on much basketball. Again, that is somewhat by design because football is king. And until we really get into conference play, guys, admittedly, there's not a lot to talk about when it comes to basketball. But tomorrow, a big one, South Carolina and Clemson at Little John Coliseum. We will break down that game. We'll preview that game. I'll predict that game. We'll cover that game. And I will be operating a post-game call-in show for that game. So when Carolina-Clemson happens, both teams undefeated, it is worthy of such coverage and cannot wait to watch that ball game, and going to be a lot of fun. Clemson, of course, ranked in the top 25. South Carolina looking to move to 8-0 and build off this hot start in year 2 of the Lamont Paris era. Guys, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get him in here. Normally joins us every Thursday. We appreciate him being flexible with his schedule. Our good friend, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He joins the show once again. And Marc, appreciate you taking the time. Let me first say this. It was awesome to be in studio with you and Diesel yesterday. I appreciate you having me, and excited to chat with you once again, my friend. How are you?
Man, it was great having you in studio. We got to do that again, man. That was fun. Show flew by. A lot of I'm sure we agreed on every single thing we said, but outside of that, man, was good to show you the digs and show you the studio a little bit, and where we are, where we bunker down to offend the masses in the upstate of South Carolina on a daily basis.
Indeed, Mark. I was thinking that actually after I left in regards to, it's funny. You look at the setups and you look at the microphone and you think of how much chaos at times it can cause. But the beauty's in the banter. That's the beautiful thing of it. But it's really cool to sit back and, like you said, get to see where the sauce is made. And again, you guys do a good job in regards to that. Before we get into all this football stuff, Mark, because there's a ton to discuss with you, obviously. Really quickly, we touched on this yesterday, but how about the start for Gamecocks men's basketball in year 2 of Lamont Paris? You mentioned, right, year 1, it's going to be rough, more than likely going to be a disaster, even with G.G. Jackson. You and I agreed, actually, if you could get to the NIT in year 2, I said even if you could just be on the bubble, I think that'd be a step forward. All of a sudden, South Carolina 7-0, and they'll take on a Clemson team that, again, you mentioned what Clemson's AD told you about. This is a make-or-break year for Brad Brownell, and so far they're making it top 25. They're undefeated as well. Good times for basketball in the Palmetto State.
It's unbelievable. We've been saying this for years, Chris, like what has happened to basketball, And then it's the chicken and the egg thing. And Dan Mullen addressed this when he was at Florida. He said, it's you come and then we win. It's not we win and then you come. It's a chicken and the egg thing. But I've had Clemson, South Carolina fans tell me, look, we've had nothing to cheer for so many years. Don't blame us for having one toe in. And so at some point, like I think the Carolina Panthers are getting to that point, Chris, where it's like, no, it's not we show up and then you win. You've given us nothing. You have to prove to us that we can trust in the product that we're receiving, right? Chris, if you got 8 bad pizzas from the pizza shop down the block, and then the 9th one was good, you'd be a little bit wary of what the 10th one was going to be like, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's what Clemson and South Carolina fans have gotten from a basketball standpoint. And now you're saying, well, where's the fan support? Where's the fan support? Well, Dawn Staley has earned what she's built, right? She has built that. It wasn't like that season 1, game 1. It wasn't like that season 3, game 1. She has earned a higher average attendance than the men get, right? And so I had a really good feeling about Lamont Paris when he was hired. I was on the court when his team beat Furman the year before in the SoCon championship game. And what I can tell you about that experience, Chris, is you felt that Furman was going to lose. I don't know how. You felt they were going to lose. And part of that is the vibe and the body language and everything that you're seeing from the players on the court. You knew that he was a guy that gets more out of less. You knew that he was a guy that really instills a ton of confidence that they're going to find a way to win the game. And gosh darn it, man, already year number 2. Chris, you would have to tell me about some of these guys, like who's back from last year of note, right? And what key transfer portal guys, if any, did they get? How is he doing this? Because to me, it feels like smoke and mirrors. And again, like to tie this into Gamecock football, Chris, before you answer that question, is like there's a lot of fans saying, well, how are we ever going to be better than we were without Spencer Rattler? Well, how are the Gamecocks men's basketball team? How are they going to be better than they were without G.G. Jackson? Sometimes, brother, there are cancers that you can't see that are pervasive in the locker room. And sometimes it's just the team getting better surrounding the new quarterback that really lifts the team. Florida Gator basketball, Chris, had Anthony Roberson and Matt Walsh and were eliminated in the second round. And they had freshmen, Al Horford and Joakim Noah, and Gator fans said, man, we're definitely not going to be better without NBA guys. Anthony Roberson and Matt Walsh won the national championship the next year when they left. You can't predict that stuff. It's easy to say, well, not going to be as good without Spencer Rattler, without G.G. Jackson, until you are. Mm-hmm. And then you realize as a fan, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. G.G. Jackson isn't here and the team is much better. That's because there's so much that goes on beneath the surface that you can't see. So what am I missing about Gamecock basketball, Chris? Give me the 411.
Yeah, to your point, Mark, I think what you've seen is, and there was a lot of questions, right, if the portal guys they picked up would work out. I think simply put, they just have to this point. Also, Michi Johnson, who did return from last year, has been really, really good. I forget if it was the last game or, excuse me, a couple games ago, he had 29 points in the ball game, really exploded in that. But he's been really good at the guard spot. Miles Studi was a guard they picked up from Vandy. BJ Mack from Wofford was a really pickup over the offseason. Talon Cooper, a guard from Minnesota. So I think they've hit on a lot of the portal guys, or at least to this point, right? The portal guys have been big contributors, whereas last year, I'm not exactly sure that was the case. And of course, it was year one of Lamont. I also think, Mark, to the point of, talking about Gigi Jackson, we mentioned this before the season started. I think I don't know, Mark. I think they've been better because the lead storyline every night's not Gigi Jackson. The whole season doesn't feel like it's about Gigi Jackson. It's just kind of like one less thing to worry about, if you will. And I think this team's doing a good job of playing team basketball. And I mean, listen, they're shooting the ball lights out. They're making a ton of threes. They made a school record. I think it was 18 threes in their last game. So we'll see tomorrow night. Obviously, I think the fairly or unfairly, the Clemson game is going to be the one that most folks look at and say, okay, well, you're 7-0, but who have you played? Are you for real? Well, let's see it against somebody. It'll be the first true road game for South Carolina as well. Clemson, on the other hand, 4 of their 7 games have been on the road, including their last win against Alabama, which is a big-time win because Bama is one of the best teams in the SEC. So we'll see. But I think simply put, Mark, I just think the portal, I think they've hit on those guys in the portal. And there's some veteran guys in there, right, that have had experience against Studi, Cooper, Mack. Like I mentioned, like these aren't youngsters who weren't really playing at their other spots. Like they're guys that have played a lot and have quality experience. I think that's what's shining through the most right now. So to your point on the football side, I think that's what you need there as well. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting in college basketball too that, and I think this is a smart strategy from Lamont Paris, is that oftentimes in hoops, the 21, 22-year-old less heralded players can outperform the guys that Kentucky gets that are 18 and that are all going to be leaving, right? One and done. And basketball is a sport where, the best talent doesn't always win. Our men's basketball team for the United States of America doesn't always win the FIBA World Basketball Cup or the Olympic gold medal, right? You can overcome talent with playing as a team and with scheme. And so I think it's a smart program building strategy for Lamont Paris to say, man, outside of the one Gigi Jackson hit, I'm seeing that I'm not able to get the 4 and 5 stars out of high school just yet. Our program isn't there. They're hitting me with the ghosts or the no response when I hit them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show we can win a different way. And then when people believe in what I'm building here, me serving as Lamont Paris for this rant, then that might open some doors to some 4 and 5 star players. Shane Beamer is able to get in homes now that he wasn't able to get into in year one. A win over Clemson and a win over Tennessee will do that for you, right? So I love what he's doing. I love the hire. There was a point in time, Chris, when Colin Cowherd and Jim Rome didn't have names, right? I always love the excuse, well, who are we going to hire that's better? Clemson fans, name for me the hire that's better than Brad Brownell. Such a lazy argument. If you're the athletic director, that's your job. It's your job to find the next Billy Donovan, right? That's your job. Locate him. That's why you're paying big-time athletic directors 7 figures these days, right? Either you can locate him or you can't. I love what Lamont Paris is doing, brother.
Mark, before we get into the college ball playoff stuff, I want to run this by you. I kicked off the show with this and was having a conversation off air with a good buddy of mine that, and we're we're seeing this across college football as a whole right now. Obviously, the portal is opened. Talking points of NIL and what have you. Guys are getting the bag, leaving for the bag, what have you. I feel like the old man yelling at clouds. So you can tell me if I am that, but I just feel like we are in such a crazy place to where NIL has created this environment in college football where guys who are supposed to come back next year, right? Like they're not going to the draft. They're maybe not even eligible. Guys who have no reason to leave. It's like everyone is making an announcement now. And again, this is happening all across college football. I'm not singling out South Carolina, but players are making announcements they are coming back by, I just signed this NIL deal with this collective. I'm back next year. And it's like, you were supposed to be back. Like, it's like guys are signing new 1-year contracts, like at the NFL level, MLB, just any pro sport. Like,
is that all NIL, or are they talking? I saw the one from the Gamecocks yesterday. Is that NIL, or is that
well, that's collective. That's a collective. Yes. So like the
so
Garnet Trust,
he signed for money to come back.
Collective. Yes.
Just signed.
Yes. Signed to the collective. Yes.
Who said that? Who said that, Chris?
Who said what?
Who made the announcement yesterday for the Gamecocks?
The Garnet Trust is the collective. So
what was the player? Who was the player?
Oh, well, I mean, it's Luke Doty this morning, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley yesterday, Jelon Kilgore yesterday.
Boogie Huntley, I don't give a rat's ass what you signed, okay? You probably weren't worthy of signing anything, all right? Just being totally honest with you. You're lucky you have a spot on the team. Okay, you're lucky South Carolina's paying your way. How about be appreciative for what you have? Signed.
And it's happening everywhere, though. You're seeing guys all over the country. Like, again, maybe I'm the old man yelling at clouds, but it's a wild. And I mean, this opens the door to the conversation, Mark. Your thoughts on just, we knew about Juice Wells, but I mean, South Carolina's had 16 players enter the portal. There's rumors that maybe there's more on the way. Now, again,
there's good news. Boogie's signed. Let's pay no attention to the fact that no one else was going to sign him, but he's signed. So we're in a good place.
Your thoughts, Mark, on, and I know we've had this combo before, but the portal. I mean, again, we're only one day in this thing. Over 1,000 players have entered after one day. Kyle McCord from Ohio State, Walter Nolan at A&M, DJ Uiagalelei over at Oregon State. I mean, I think we talked about it yesterday. The business of college football in regards to, the overall business, but for guys like us, content creators, it's never been better. Being a fan of college football, could you argue that it's never been worse?
It's never been worse. And Chris, does it make me a bad person for saying the following? I'm so tired of these canned responses. You and I are friends with this dude in all kinds of weather that covers Florida. Every time someone transfers, he posts, "Thank you for what you did for the University of Florida." Get the hell out of here with this, man. Like, here's the reality, Chris. Does it make me a bad person to say we need some of these outcomes to work out poorly? We need some of these outcomes to work out poorly. We need some of these kids to learn that the grass isn't always greener. We need a market correction here, right? We need that. If we're wishing everybody well, and I hope you become a superstar, and sorry, you couldn't become a superstar here, and that's where it is, this problem is just going to get worse. It's not going to become better. We need a very hard lesson to be learned that, hey, man, where you got it is good. Where you got it is good. Chris, I think about that every day where I am. Where I have it is good. Don't try to be happier than happy, right? Where you've got it is good. What you've built is good. Don't try to be happier than happy, right? Now, there could be amazing opportunities that come our way that we can't foresee, right? At the same time, like, realize what you've got. And so if we're genuinely wishing that all these guys who are dumping our teams, if we're genuinely wishing them nothing but the best, then college football is going to be worse for the wear. Some of these dudes need to fail. And perhaps I'm the only guy willing to say that.
Moving into, Mark, the college football playoff stuff. Again, we talked about this a lot yesterday, but for those who may have missed it, you have a very strong stance on, which I admire your objectivity, because this is the arch rival of the Florida Gators, Florida State. They are left out. Alabama is in. What was your immediate reaction? I'm sure you were watching like the rest of us. What was your immediate reaction to seeing that?
Chris, I'm not sure if you've seen this today, but I've said my immediate reaction today, okay? And if you're familiar with the Sports Center anchor Elle Duncan, okay,
Mhm.
she's come at me in the last couple of hours for this. Now I know Elle. She was a sports anchor on TV in Atlanta when I was in Atlanta, and she came on my shows in Atlanta. And she said, Mark, I'm a fan of yours and I like you, but I don't like this take. What I said, Chris, was it's sad to say that we now know that college football committee playoff members and many media personalities that we've watched for years were bought. They were bought. And here's what I mean by that. When you choose ratings over the most deserving team, you were bought. The committee did that. The committee made it the Brand Power Invitational, right? And so they're bought. And that is a sad state of affairs to be in. In this particular instance, there was no right. It's not, Mark Ryan, you were wrong. The committee got it right. There was no right. And no matter what they did, they were committing a cardinal sin. Either you're leaving out a Power Five unbeaten, either you're ignoring head to head in the case of Texas, either you're ignoring the fact that Alabama just beat the committee's number one team in Alabama. But to me, there were two teams, I should say, that were guaranteed in. Those two teams were Florida State and Washington. Michigan has the cheating question mark, so that puts them in their own iffy category. And then, okay, so if you decide that Michigan is in, that leaves a debate between Alabama and Texas. Which do you value more, the head-to-head win in September or Alabama's Saturday win in December over the number one team in America? But to me, Florida State and Washington were the two biggest shoo-ins. And then consider the message that we just sent that, cheating is cool. We acknowledge Michigan cheated. They've acknowledged they've cheated. They accepted their punishment. Do you accept a punishment for something you didn't do? They've fired people on their staff who were cheating. Okay? The only thing we're missing is the end of the smoking gun where Connor Stallions reveals who received the information that he got. That's the only piece that we're missing here, right? So Florida State and Washington, based on what they achieved, were in. And one of the worst things that's happening in society right now, Chris, with the pervasiveness and the increase in saturation of betting, is now we're allowing lines to make decisions for us. Okay. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be. Oh, man, Florida State would have been an underdog. Therefore, they're worst. They're worse than these other two teams. Well, who was an underdog? Washington, Oregon. Oh, okay. Why play the game? Who was an underdog? Alabama, Georgia. Why play the game? Florida State damn well earned the right to prove the Vegas odds makers wrong. And the most lazy, idiotic discussion is, well, when Georgia dispatches a Florida State that doesn't care anymore, that has been given no reason, that's proof that Florida State didn't deserve. No. They earned the right to be there independent of any result that happens afterward. Okay? That is totally irrelevant. TCU earned the right to be in last year's playoff, independent of them getting depantsed in the national championship game. They beat Michigan. They earned the right to be in there. Okay? So the results don't mean you deserve or didn't deserve a damn thing. What they did, I think Florida State was the second most deserving team to be in the college football playoff after Washington. Michigan's in its own category. Okay? Then if you decide Michigan's not in, then Alabama and Texas are in. If you decide Michigan's in, then you debate between Alabama and Texas. But Florida State damn well should be in that thing. And I find their exclusion, all right, and the proof to all of you guys that I'm able to be objective is that I hate Florida State more than any other team as a Florida grad, okay? They are the team that I hate more than any other, okay? I'm telling you, this is the most egregious, most corrupt action that I've seen in my years of watching sports.
And it's brought you to a point, Mark, which I think is interesting because, like we talked yesterday, I think one of my bigger takeaways from all of this, it was a flawed system that got exposed. 4 spots for 5 Power 5 conferences. I'm surprised it took this long for it to fail, for it to blow up. But it's brought you to a place where you, as someone that totally opposed to an expanded playoff, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's brought you to a place where you're saying, you know what? Quality over quantity, but it is the lesser of the two evils in an instance like this.
We are making college football worse in a number of ways. The NIL, the portal, etc. Not appreciating the biggest games, and the fact that Alabama and Georgia didn't have a safety net. Winner moves on, losers out. The fact that Michigan, Ohio State didn't have a safety net. Winner moves on, losers out. Just, I need people to look ahead and see what Alabama, Georgia is going to be like next year when, okay, you win, you're the 1, we lose, we're the 4. There's 12 teams. We both get buys, or now the 4 highest ranked conference champions get buys, but you win, you're the 1, we lose, we're the 6. We'll meet you again. We'll see you again. Do you see how much that loses? I mean, we lose that fever pitch intensity. And so we're making college football worse. But when I see this corruption at play, sign me up for making the biggest games worse, man. Sign me up for something I never do in my own life, which is I'm a quality over quantity guy. I choose fewer friends as opposed to tons of acquaintances, right? I choose meaningful relationships over many relationships, right? I've always been quality over quantity, always. Now I'm choosing willingly quantity over quality because I can't handle another glimpse of the corruption that I just witnessed.
Mark, we're in an interesting place when it comes to college football. And again, we're getting that 12-team playoff next year, whether folks like it or not. But and it's the segue into it is just, I don't know, the irony to me. I can't escape it. But with that being said, Mark, it is bowl season. Again, I know
Are
we
you
lightly
announcing for the transfer portal? Because you
I'm
just
not.
said,
No,
with
I'm
that
not.
being said, you just said the magic words.
The buzz with that. I mean, I literally said it about a week and a half ago. We are approaching, with that being said, season. Brace yourselves. I know you've said, like, why can't guys just come out and say, you know what? I'm leaving for the bag. I don't care who doesn't like it. Peace. That's it. There needs to be none of this. With that being said, thank you to this,
I've
this,
loved
and this.
my time in Columbia. Coach Stepp, Coach Beamer. You
With
guys
that being said,
will always be father figures to me, bruh. Will always be fathers to me. And the Gamecock fans, you showed me love that my ex-girlfriends never did. With that being said, peace out, bro.
Mark, let's play a fun game in the spirit of bowl season. I know you mentioned yesterday that the bowl slate is, in your mind, underwhelming.
Yeah.
But I want to go through these SEC bowl games specifically. I want to go on a scale of 0 to 10, your excitement level, watchability ratings, if you will, for each of these games. 0 being it's a snooze fest, 10 being it's must-see TV. You will be watching the football game. So let's go through these. You game for that? Are you good with that?
I'm down.
All right, cool. So Texas A&M and Oklahoma State in the Texas Bowl.
3.5.
Clemson, Kentucky.
Clemson deserved a better opponent than this, in my opinion, given who they've beaten and given what they've accomplished. You could make a point, Chris, that whoever's the higher ranked team in the bowl game is getting the short end of the stick in terms of their opponent, right? But to me, this one is also a 3.5 or a 4 because we just saw South Carolina play both of these teams back to back. And while transitive property is often defeated, I feel like I know that Clemson is a better team. I feel like I'll be convinced if Kentucky wins that they wanted it more than Clemson did. And you never want to be saying that. You never want to, like, Clemson LSU, that intrigues me. One of the best defenses in America, one of the best offenses in America. Where's that game? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like they did a piss poor job on these matchups.
With that being said, Mark, Music City Bowl, Auburn and Maryland.
Negative 36, Chris.
I don't even blame you with that one. The Citrus Bowl, Tennessee and the mighty Iowa Hawkeyes, who I'm not sure if you saw, the same golf place that during the Big Ten Championship was doing free beer. I don't know if you saw this, free beer until Iowa scored, which I don't think they scored in the game, right? So it was just free beer all night. They're doing that again. Free beer for the game. Tennessee, Iowa.
So this to me is a poor man's Clemson versus LSU. Okay? Like that's to me what this is. So this is a cool game, Chris, because of the contrast of styles you get in college football that you don't get in the NFL, right? I mean, if South Carolina was 2-10 and they had the worst offense in America, people would say, well, this is the reason why we have the worst offense in America. Iowa's 10-2 with literally the worst offense in America. It's amazing to witness their ineptitude on one side of the football and their dominance on the other. Can you imagine what their practice looks like? Like, can you, like, what do you think they're saying to themselves in practice? Like, either we've got the 2000 Baltimore Ravens on defense, right? Or we've got a high school offense. Which is it? Oh, it's both. Okay, great. So I think that one, Chris, to me, it's not great teams, but the matchup is interesting. I'll go 6.5.
How about the ReliaQuest Bowl, Mark? LSU taking on Wisconsin. Interesting matchup here.
It is the unReliaQuest Bowl to me, Chris. Wisconsin, really? Wisconsin? LSU Clemson or LSU Wisconsin? Which does it for you? And again, if Wisconsin pulls the upset, you're going to have all the Big Ten people thumping their chest. Are you up for this game if you're LSU? Are you up for this game if you're LSU? You are the first team that would have been out of the 12-team playoff. Actually, Chris, I can scratch that because you, if you're LSU, would not have scheduled Florida State anymore under the new 12. Why would you? You don't need to schedule Florida State. You flop Florida State with Florida International. Never been better. Now you've got 2 losses and not 3, and now you're in the bowl. Like, again, how did this happen? And it happens, Chris, because you have individual bowl entities concerned about only their own interests, and you do not have an overarching commissioner that cares about making compelling matchups. Is this a compelling matchup? No. 2. Next.
How about the Cotton Bowl, Mark? Missouri and Ohio State. Ohio State, already the opt-outs have begun. Tons of opt-outs. Kyle McCord's entered the transfer portal. Mizzou was a great story this year, have been. Eli Drinkwitz named AP Coach of the Year in the SEC, I believe. Thoughts on Missouri and Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl?
I like this one. I like this one. This is an interesting matchup. By the way, as if all these Ohio State yuck guys are good enough to be opting out of bowl games. It's like, you see what's happening, Chris? It's like they're classifying themselves as being of a certain level of player. Like, I'm an opt-out worthy player. The boogie guy on South Carolina is classifying himself as a certain caliber of player by having an announcement of what he's doing. You know what I mean? We all realized that the blue check mark on Twitter was irrelevant when Elon Musk did what he did with it, right? It's no longer relevant. It no longer means this is a noteworthy person, right? I've never gained more followers in a year, Chris. This is the only year I haven't had the blue check mark. Okay. So I've learned firsthand just how irrelevant that is. I like Missouri, Ohio State. I think Missouri is going to have a lot to prove. I'd consider Missouri the favorite in that game, just based on the intangibles that are working for Wisconsin and against LSU are working for Missouri and against Ohio State.
To your point, Mark, I think that's a game where Ohio State, not thrilled to be there necessarily, didn't meet their goals. I think for Missouri, that's a game where I know bowl games don't mean as much as they used to, but for a program like Mizzou, that could be a huge launching point. So I think that's two differing, the mentalities of those teams, those fan bases, I think much different. Peach Bowl, Ole Miss, Penn State, watchability rating and thoughts on the game? Doesn't do a whole
I mean,
lot, huh?
what is it for you? What is it for you,
Yeah,
Chris?
it's interesting to me because these two teams are similar in the standpoint of they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They're kind of on the edge, can't get over the hump right now. I think that's more of a damning thing to Penn State than it is Ole Miss because of what Ole Miss faces on a yearly
Yeah, so it's
basis.
like
But
this game determines who's the biggest loser, right? Like it's you see what I'm saying,
right,
right?
right,
I mean,
right.
that's a TV show. It's just like, okay, you know, who is second among the bridesmaids? Who is first among the bridesmaids? I don't I don't really care to see that. I mean, now if you tell me this is a playoff game, which it wouldn't be, right? Guess what garbage playoff games we'd get? Ole Miss, Georgia, which we just saw, and Ohio State, Penn State, which we just saw. So we wouldn't even be getting good matchups in the playoffs. Now, what they will do, Chris, is they will tweak the seeds to make sure you don't get the
Mhm.
same matchups. That's another form of corruption that they've already done before now. But if you told me that this was a playoff game, I'd be interested. Why? Because I want to see which one of these two programs is most ready to take the next step. As it is, I think Ole Miss has firepower that Penn State does not. I'd say my interest in this is 5.
Now we get in the fun ones. There's two left, Mark. How about the Orange Bowl with Georgia and Florida State? Again, like you mentioned, there's going to be, unfortunately, a lot of people that are approaching this thing as they're waiting to see FSU get exposed. But the reality is this is two teams that, again, you got to question the motivation levels because neither really wanted to be here.
Yeah, 100%. You just wait for the casuals to come out and when Georgia wins 30-6, I told you Florida State didn't deserve to be, as if that determines anything about anything. It determines not a damn thing. What is earned between September and early December has nothing to do with what happens in late December or early January. All right. Did TCU not deserve to be in it last year? They won a freaking playoff game. Playoff wins. TCU 1 in their history, Michigan 0 in their history. Playoff wins. You're going to tell me TCU didn't belong there? No, TCU learned that Michigan was stealing their signs. They made dummy calls. So they called plays where Michigan thought a slant was coming, and instead it was a go route, and they beat Michigan. Good for you. They deserve to be there. Chris, this game I will avoid like the plague. Okay, so my interest level in this one is an absolute 0. It proves nothing. This game is going to be a bunch of casuals being full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
And finally, Mark, the college football playoff, the Rose Bowl, Alabama and Michigan. Again, we will talk about this a lot leading up to it. I know on your show today, which I highly encourage folks to go listen to. I think you guys are starting to talk your leans for the college football playoff, but purely from a watchability standpoint, your thoughts on this one. I think it's fascinating, as I told you yesterday, because you've got on one side, the nation hates Alabama for, keeping FSU out the playoff essentially. And then a lot of the nation hates Michigan for the Connor Stallions cheating thing. So it's a fascinating game to me from that standpoint. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, look, congratulations, everybody. They picked the best games. I just had L. Duncan tell me, L. Duncan said to me today, I'm not watching the playoff to see ACC Iowa, which is what she called Florida State. Okay. And I said, L, I don't consider games you don't want to see to be selection criteria. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to see this game. So therefore, games we want to see is the criteria for selecting playoff teams. Chris, Alabama's capable of beating Michigan. Michigan was my national championship pick when the season began. I am sticking with Michigan as my national championship pick because I think part of being a great team is a level of consistency that Alabama has not shown. They lost to number 12 Texas at home by double digits. They were tied 3-3 against USF in the third quarter. Okay. They beat one win SEC Arkansas, and damn, do I hate that one win. They beat one win SEC Arkansas by 3 points in October. They barely beat 6-win Auburn that got boat raced by New Mexico State in November. If you want to tell me that Florida State barely beat this team or barely beat that team, may I raise you, hold my beer while I give you Alabama's craptastic results. Okay. Part of being a great team is consistency. I think the best teams in college football, and maybe Georgia isn't one, can expose that inconsistency within the same game. I will lean Michigan over Alabama, but I will say that Alabama's best, if what happened on Saturday was, what had happened was Alabama brought its A game and Georgia brought its C game. If Alabama brings its A game and Michigan brings its C game, Alabama can win that game. But we've seen too many C, D, and F games from Alabama this year to make me think that's a guarantee.
Tough to doubt the GOAT, though, with a lot of time to get ready. That's all I will say. That is the sort of a X factor in that ball game. We shall see, though. Marc, you've been gracious with your time. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to get you out of here. Last thing, though, you mentioned the underwhelming bowl games, and I don't know necessarily like if you used to get really excited for bowl season and now you're kind of just like, meh, who cares? How do we fix bowl season, though, in your mind?
Well, the bowl season is officially dead when we go to 12 teams, Chris, because it is going to be, for 13 or 14 different teams in college football, it's going to be either we make the playoff or we're not paying attention, right? And then, unfortunately, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, now we need to expand it even more. And then we're going to have what we have in college basketball, which is, well, now we only pay attention in the month of March in many cases, right? From a local perspective, Chris, yeah, we talk about Clemson against South Carolina. From a national perspective, when I do network shows, I can't. It's crickets. I've even found that I get crickets in March now. So realize what is happening here, Chris. I think bowl season is dead. I think one thing they could do is give us more David and Goliath matchups. Like give Coastal Carolina a chance against a Clemson. Give them a chance, right? And then the motivation that Coastal Carolina would motivate Clemson so that they don't get embarrassed, right? Give us more of these matchups. Give me more UCF LSU, UCF Auburn, right? I mean, that would do something. And just pay attention to the matchups, right? There are really fascinating matchups that the world would like to see. LSU Clemson would be listed as the best non-playoff game if they had been matched together. And instead, because of bowl tie-ins and money and the selection process, you get two games nobody cares about. LSU Wisconsin, Clemson Kentucky. Now, Clemson fans care about Clemson Kentucky. Kentucky fans care about Clemson Kentucky. Nationally, it doesn't move the needle from a matchup perspective, Chris. So start by putting together compelling matchups. You do that by having a commissioner involved. As long as each bowl entity is only out for their own interest, there's a risk you're left with this, which is, frankly, Chris, utter garbage.
There you have it. Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Check him out daily on the Fan Upstate, 3 to 7 offsides with Marc Ryan. He and Dees will do a fantastic job. Marc, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. It's a pleasure as always, and we'll do it again next week.
Always, brother. Take care. All the best.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff, guys, from our good friend Marc Ryan as he takes the time on a weekly basis to join us. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, are staff changes coming in Columbia? Yes, no, what it would mean if they do or do not, when could they happen? The latest on what I'm hearing. All that and more, guys, on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle doggy ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023. Hope you are all doing well. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. I want to say thank you yet again to our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate for taking the time to chat. Always a pleasure with him. And again, guys, had a really good time yesterday in studio. Really good time in studio. Hanging out with he and Diesel, talking ball, all that good stuff, guys. Again, Appreciate you all tuning in. I see you flooding the chat lines, whether it be via YouTube, Facebook, what have you. Continue to do so. We'll get to all of those questions in the final 30 minutes or so of our show. In the meantime, guys, I've been getting a lot of questions lately about South Carolina's coaching staff, potential changes, when we could see those take place, if they are going to take place. And I think it definitely becomes a bit of a priority, right? There's a sense of urgency, especially when you see your arch rival, the Clemson Tigers, go out and, after an 8-4 season, after a season in which they beat you, they go out and make staff changes and hire very high quality candidates. Their offensive line coach, new offensive line coach, Matt Luke, former Ole Miss head coach. And on the defensive side, they add Chris Rumpf, a Gamecock alum, to their defensive staff. So many Gamecock fans looking around saying, hey, what is Shane Beamer waiting on? Are there going to be staff changes? Because right now we see Shane Beamer's on the road recruiting. His staff is on the road recruiting. So it kind of makes you sit back and wonder, like, what's going on? Are there going to be changes? The latest I'm hearing, guys, is this. The latest I'm hearing is up to 5. There could be up to 5 staff changes. Will there be 5? Maybe, maybe not. But I think what you've seen from South Carolina, not just in that regard, but you look at the transfer portal, there's a bit of the mentality of trimming the fat, if you will, right? Not all portal entries are equal. Not all coaching changes are equal, to where it's like, okay, well, he left us and he's taking another opportunity, whether it be the portal or coaching. Some of it is, okay, hey, we're going a different direction. Here's where we realistically sit. This is happening in the portal, right? A lot of guys are told to find other opportunities. They're not necessarily doing it off of their own free will. So when it comes to the coaching staff, from what I have heard, I believe, and again, this is subject to change. It's just the latest that we're hearing. I think there will be at minimum 2 changes on the staff. From what I've heard, there could be up to 5. I'm not sure there will be 5, but there could be up to 5. I think some of the obvious candidates for coaches that could be relieved of their duties, could, quote unquote, find other opportunities, right? Because Marcus Satterfield technically never got fired, but I think it was pretty well understood what took place behind closed doors, right? So, I think obviously, guys, you start with Clayton White. I think you start at the defensive coordinator spot. After a really rough season, just finished his 3rd year, a season in which there was a 4-game stretch, 4 games in a row. You allowed 30 points or more in each of those games. I think Clayton White is the first name that comes up. I think a change at DC could happen. That's certainly one of the names that I've heard that's been floated around. I think you look at the running back coach position, Montario Hardesty, right? Montario Hardesty, a coach that there's been questions about running back recruiting. There's been questions about the handling of that position. Certainly, that is a name that has been floated. Believe it or not, guys, I've also heard the name, and again, these are all speculation. This is all just what I've heard. I've also heard the name Justin Stepp, believe it or not, at the wide receiver coach position, which you look at some of the guys that are departing and, maybe there could be something to that, although I'd be kind of surprised if Justin Stepp were relieved of his duties. You then look at strength and conditioning. Luke Day, a name that is out there. Maybe potentially South Carolina goes a different direction. So, and I will say this, guys. What would stun me more? If South Carolina changes 4 to 5 coaches on the staff, or if they change 0, if they keep the same staff that went 5-7 in 2023 into 2024. What would surprise me more is keeping the exact same staff. Because, again, I really do feel like in the building, Gamecocks football, Shane Beamer, they've taken this mentality of, okay, fat's got to be trimmed. South Carolina has to go a different direction. And so the big question becomes then, well, what's the holdup? Why not now? What is South Carolina waiting on? And I think there's pros and cons to both ways of action, right? I think there's pros and cons to doing it right now, right? Doing it right now in the midst of the transfer portal and what have you, doing it immediately after the season. I think there's pros and cons to waiting until after National Signing Day, which will take place in 15 days on December the 20th. I think you look at the pros and cons of right now. The pro, you get out ahead of it, right? You get out ahead of it. And, you're able to start the search early. You're able to potentially maybe do like a Clemson did and fill those positions early before the portal ends, before the signing day takes place. So you're able to get out ahead of it. I think the con, obviously, is you're in the midst of the portal. You got guys that are out recruiting right now. You want to maintain and hold on to, right? Your 24 signing class. You think about Dylan Stewart. You go fire Clayton White. Do you lose him as a prospect? That'd be a huge loss for South Carolina. On the flip side, though, guys, I look at it this way. With the portal existing the way it does, let's say you wait till January to make changes. Guys can very easily up and just enter the portal. They signed to South Carolina thinking X was their position coach. Y was their coordinator. If that does not come to fruition, if that changes, is there a level of trust that is somewhat broken? Again, I think the pro, though, of doing it after, again, you're able to go out and recruit. You put on a strong front. You're able to focus on the portal and recruiting and getting talent versus being spread thin, and maybe you don't land the guys you hope to land. Because, again, it's about Jimmys and Joes, right? More than X's and O's. South Carolina has a good players problem more than a good coaches problem, I would argue, although there need to be changes. So there's pros and cons to both guys. Again, back to what I'm hearing, I think there will be changes. I will be stunned, flat out stunned, if Shane Beamer does not pull the trigger on a couple guys. I'm not telling you it's going to be 5. I've heard it could be up to 5. Realistically, I don't think it will be 5. If I had to predict right now, I'd probably say 2, maybe 3 will be what Shane Beamer, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, I think that will be the turnover, 2 to 3 coaches. But I think Shane Beamer understands, and again, we're seeing it in the portal. I think Shane Beamer understands that after 5 and 7, after a season which was tumultuous and fell short of expectations across the board, there's got to be changes. There has to be something. Something has to give. You cannot go through this offseason. You cannot go into 2024 operating the same exact way that you did. So, again, if you're a fan of Gamecocks football, you've got to trust Shane Beamer. You got to trust that Shane Beamer knows what he's doing in this instance. But I think rest assured, because I know there's frustration right now, and I totally get it, right? Again, you see Clemson making moves, and they went 8-4, and they beat you. And they're showing a sense of urgency, and they're getting out ahead of things. They're hiring coaches. They've already fired and hired. Meanwhile, South Carolina, no staff changes in Columbia. I do not think that'll be the reality for much longer. If I had to predict, guys, also of when these staff changes will take place, with that being said, and this could change, no doubt. This could happen today, could happen tomorrow, whatever. I think Shane Beamer's a guy that's going to wait until January. I think Shane Beamer's a guy, guys, that he doesn't want to sever ties. I mean, you think about it. Has Shane Beamer ever fired anyone? Who is Shane Beamer fired? He didn't technically fire Marcus Satterfield. So Maybe he will fire Clayton White. Maybe he will fire Montario Hardesty. Maybe he will fire somebody else. I have no idea. But if I had to guess right now, I'm thinking it's early January. And also, guys, here's the other thing too. There could be coaches out there they're targeting that are currently coaching in bowl games. Maybe they're coaching in a New Year's Day bowl game. Maybe they're coaching in a playoff. Who knows? But I understand not wanting to make a move and just have an opening. And the openings sit there for weeks and weeks and weeks. At the same time, though, a bit of a restlessness grows within the Gamecocks fan base. And after a 5-7 season, you can't blame them. So, again, guys, I think there will be staff changes. We're hearing behind the scenes there will be staff changes. When that will take place, we shall see. But I do think, and we've seen it in the portal, 16 guys have entered the portal at this point, and we're only through a day and a half. Trimming of the fats happening in Columbia in regards to roster turnover. And I think it's only a matter of time before it hits the Gamecocks coaching staff as well. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break on the other side. We're going to talk SEC bowl season. I'm going to power rank the SEC bowl games in regards to my excitement level of the matchups, how much I'm looking forward to seeing these games, if you will, from, again, this game's a snoozer to I cannot wait to sit down and watch every single second of the ball game. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, December the 5th, 2023. Guys, don't forget, last 30 minutes or so, we're taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Again, guys, thank you all so much for the continued love and support. With that being said, bowl season is nearly upon us. 11 days, I think it is, until the very first bowl game. And I was having this conversation yesterday about, the bowl season. The bowl slate's underwhelming. Coastal Carolina, San Diego State. I think it's like Northwestern, Tulane, something like that. But I tell you what, guys, when it's July and you're counting down to football season and we're just sitting there, we're watching simulations, right? I'd take Coastal Carolina, San Diego State. And in the spirit of that, I thought, why not? Let's power rank the SEC bowl games. We love to power rank things, right? Teams, bowl games, players, whatever it might be. So when you look at these bowl games, there are 9 SEC bowl games. I'm going to power rank the games from the games that I am least excited about, that I could do without. I'm going to watch them all, by the way. Let me go ahead and say that. I'm a college football junkie, SEC football junkie. I'm going to watch them all. But I'm going to power rank them from worst to best, least watchable to most watchable, from least intriguing to most intriguing, however you want to label it. So with that being said, guys, we start at number 9. We'll start from the bottom and go to the top. We start at 9, dead last, and it is the Music City Bowl. The Auburn Tigers taking on Maryland. Not a lot to say about this one. I got to be honest with you. Auburn, and again, by the way, guys, we will preview all these games. The plan is to preview each and every single game, but from an entertainment standpoint, I don't know what there really is to say about Auburn and Maryland. Two not very good teams. Auburn, I think it'll be interesting to see how they respond after that Iron Bowl heartbreak, if you will. But same team that lost to New Mexico State, obviously. Maryland just is sort of there. Not a lot really fires me up. Not a lot really intrigues me about this one. So number 9, easily for me, Auburn and Maryland in the Music City Bowl. And number 8, the Texas Bowl. I've got Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. Okie State obviously getting blown out in the Big 12 title game. Texas A&M without a head coach right now, at least coaching in the bowl game. Mike Elko, of course, hired. But going to be interesting. I mean, Walter Nolan's already hit the portal. Opt-outs, obviously, are going to hit every single one of these games, transfer portal, what have you. But I don't know. There's just, in regards to my personal interest, intrigue level, I'm having to find reasons why I'm going to be excited for this one. I guess like the regional matchup to a degree, right? Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, sort of in that same region of the country, if you will. For those reasons, maybe there's some sort of a little bit of a rivalry there. I will, again, definitely watch this game along with the others, but it doesn't do a ton for me. At number 7, I've got the Gator Bowl at 7, guys. Kentucky taking on the Clemson Tigers. The only rooting interest I have in this thing is pulling against Clemson. That's it. Outside of that, guys, you got a Clemson offense that's terrible. You got a Kentucky offense that, exploded against Louisville, but against South Carolina was abysmal. And it is interesting, right, that both of these teams played South Carolina the final 2 weeks of the regular season, and now they're playing each other, right? I think Marc Ryan makes good points on, based off the transitive property, you feel like you should be able to figure this thing out. This is a throwback, though, guys. If you didn't realize this, Kentucky-Clemson, this is a throwback to, I think, like 2006, maybe? 2007, something like that. These two have met in a bowl game before. So What's the motivation factor for a Clemson? You know, we're seeing transfer portal guys hit the portal. Clemson obviously was expecting to be in the ACC title playoff, whatever. On the Kentucky side, Devin Leary and company, Ray Davis, what are their opt-out situation? What does that look like? I am interested in this one more so because we're all just pulling for Clemson to lose. That's the intriguing part. At number 6, the Citrus Bowl. Tennessee taking on Iowa. I don't know how Iowa's going to keep up in this game. Do we see a lot of Nico in this game for Tennessee? I think that could be intriguing. Does Joe Milton, does he play? I guess there's no reason for him not to play, but in a bowl game, you just never know what might happen. Can Iowa score, or is it free beer for the folks at that golf place or whatever? I don't even know where it's at, but they ran the promo free beer until Iowa scores, and it was drinks pouring all night long. So they're doing that again. Tennessee, you would think, is going to have a field day. What can Tennessee do against that elite Iowa offense? But I mean, I don't know. Like, Iowa's a team where they're really good, but not all that fun to watch. And then Tennessee, I'm just curious how they combat that. And if they get rolling scoring, there's just no way Iowa's going to keep up. At number 5, guys, I got the ReliaQuest Bowl, LSU and Wisconsin. I'm excited for this because I think we're going to be watching the Heisman Trophy winner play in this game. Jaden Daniels, there's been no announcement. There's been no news that he is going to opt out of the game. I do think more than likely Jaden Daniels will win the Heisman, guys. We'll talk about that a lot more tomorrow in regards to who should be the favorite. We'll break down each candidate, stuff like that. The 4 candidates have been announced. The Wisconsin side, interesting year for them. Luke Fickell, first-year head coach. I think it's going to be a slugfest to a degree in the trenches. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. LSU, though, I think you start getting into these games, guys, my top 5. The crowd out there that loves to argue that bowl games don't matter, that they just mean nothing. It's funny how people say that, but for the teams that win bowl games, I just go back to what Steve Spurrier said when he was at South Carolina, maybe even before that it just does wonders for you when you can win that last game on your schedule, when you can go into the offseason off of a win. Everything's better. The offseason's better. Training is better. The preseason practice is better. Spring ball is better. Spring game's better. Everything around your program is better, right? So for an LSU team, LSU program looking to launch into 2024, I do think a lot of good could come from a win in this ballgame. At number 4, guys, I've got the Peach Bowl, Ole Miss and Penn State. Again, a pair of programs and a pair of teams. Seems like they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride for whatever reason. Both these programs are kind of knocking on the door. They're not in bad spots, right? I think Penn State, the situation is a little bit more dire under James Franklin than it is at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, because here's the thing, guys. You go 10-2 starting next year, Ole Miss is a playoff team. Mizzou is a playoff team. Double-digit wins, more than likely, as an SEC team, is going to get you in the playoffs. So, I think it's a good game, guys, from the standpoint of a pair of teams on really equal footing, a pair of teams in similar situations in regards to their ascension and trying to climb as a program. The explosive offense of Ole Miss. Can Penn State keep up? Obviously, offensively, got a great defense, though, as well. The Lane Kiffin factor obviously makes it a must-watch. So at number 4, I have the Peach Bowl. Number 3, I've got the Orange Bowl, Georgia and Florida State. This, unfortunately, is not going to be the game that it should be, that it's supposed to be. This is a game that's about which team is more motivated. I mean, really, truly, guys, like, you kind of have to try to read in between the lines of motivation factor. I'd probably lean Georgia at this point because I think Kirby Smart does such a good job of motivating his football team. And it would be strange to me to see a Georgia team come out flat and uninspired and lose the football game. And I mean, for Florida State, though, without Jordan Travis, got screwed over from making the playoff. I mean, you got to wonder, what's that roster going to look like when toe meets leather? I mean, you really have to wonder what that roster is going to look like. So, I mean, you could argue, guys, this game could have been number 1, but because of the lack of motivation for both sides, because of the potential opt-outs, because of the potential transfer portal entries that are going to hit both teams, especially FSU. It's not going to quite be the game that we hoped it would be, but still, I'm very intrigued because of all those things I just mentioned, what this game is going to look like. Is Georgia just going to boat race Florida State? Is Florida State? Huge game. Huge opportunity for them. What if Florida State goes out and beats Georgia? What if? What if, man? A lot on the line in that football game. Number 2, guys, I've got the Cotton Bowl. Missouri and Ohio State. Obviously, Kyle McCord already entering the transfer portal. There's been more guys that have opted out into the portal for Ohio State. I'm just excited for this game because I think this could be a massive, massive launching point for Missouri. And either way, guys, whether they win or lose, it doesn't change the great things Mizzou did this season and the goodwill they built up for their program and the way they really ascended Missouri football this year. But I mean, dude, you beat Ohio State. You finish with 11 wins. You go 11-2, and you go into 2024. I mean, you got to feel really, really good if you're a fan of MIZ going into the offseason with that type of momentum, right? Like, you think about that type of momentum. And it's just playing in Missouri's hands, by the way, that Ohio State, they don't want to be there. Their goal was the playoff. McCord's out. Guys are opting out left and right. Meanwhile, guys, I mean, I don't expect a lot of Mizzou dudes. I think Missouri, I think the mentalities are completely different between these two. But I am fascinated to watch this game because of what it could potentially mean for the Missouri Tigers moving forward. That reason I've got this game at number 2. And at number 1, guys, I mean, it's no secret. It's no surprise, I should say. The Rose Bowl, the college football playoff matchup between Alabama and the Michigan Wolverines. I'm excited about this one for many reasons. Number 1, it's going to be a great football game. Michigan a 2-point favorite in the game. Number 2, get to watch the GOAT at work, right? Like I said yesterday, I was wrong. I was wrong in the GOAT. Doubt the GOAT at your own risk, especially with all this time to get ready for this ball game. But another reason why, when you talk storylines and like why I'm so fascinated, on one hand, you've got the evil empire that is Alabama and Lord Nick Saban that got put in the college football playoff, to some undeservingly so. And Alabama that kept Florida State, an undefeated Power 5 conference champion, out of the playoff. Many across the college football landscape hate Alabama for that. And on the other side, you've got Michigan, who's the number 1 team in college football, right? But the whole Connor Stallions thing, Jim Harbaugh getting suspended throughout the regular season. I mean, there's a lot of people across college football that hate Michigan. And so a lot of folks looking at this game, they're going to have to pick, okay, which of these is the lesser of the two evils? Do I go for Alabama in this to dethrone Michigan and prove that karma is real? Or do I go for Michigan to knock out the SEC and the evil empire that is Alabama football? I think there's going to be a lot of people that are at a crossroads. Still, guys, going to be a great game. This is obviously, again, obvious reasons, the game I'm most excited to watch. Cannot wait to take in this game. And, guys, you could even add in, by the way, Texas is going to be in the SEC next year. How about that Texas and Washington game that'll follow right after that one? So don't believe the skeptics when they tell you that bowl season's no good anymore. Bowl season sucks. Bowl season's around the corner, and I personally cannot wait. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll dive into your questions, your comments, your voicemails. I want to hear from you, 843-790-3377. All that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Tuesday, December the 6th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. With that being said, our daily mailbag segment officially gets underway. Let's see. We've got a voicemail to get into. I want to shout out the guy, by the way, that blew up the voicemail line with nonsense. 404 number. Thank you, sir, for that. We're going to get into one that was actually left last night. Was left late last night. We'll get into this, guys, kick it off, and then we'll get into your questions, comments, what have you on Facebook, YouTube, whatever it might be. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get it rolling.
Kevin, the one that vents because Beamer hasn't fired any coaches or made any changes. Well, I just saw Dabo's hired Chris Rump, former Gamecock, of course, and something Luke, I can't remember his first name, but offensive line coach. He's been at Ole Miss and Georgia and other places. So on paper, at least, it looks like Dabo's made some good hires. What's Beamer doing? Any idea? I'm sick of it. Anyway, just had to vent again. Talk to you later. Thank you.
Kevin, I appreciate the voicemail, my friend. We talked about this, guys, obviously, in today's show. I think changes are coming. That being said, I don't blame fans for wondering what the hell's going on and wondering why Shane Beamer hasn't made any changes. I get it. I totally get it, man. Okay, that being said, we got another voicemail here. We'll jump into it.
Hey, what's up? I was wondering who you thought the better OC was. I know you was a big Lincoln Riley fan. Garrett Riley. Is that who it was? Anyways, who do you think the better OC was? Riley or Dowell Loggins? I was kind of thinking Riley was going to bring a lot more to the table for Clemson. Looks like Loggins, in my opinion, might have did better with less.
I appreciate the call, my friend. See, that's a really interesting question when you compare in the Palmetto State Dowell Loggins at South Carolina to Garrett Riley at Clemson. Which first-year OC had a better year? I think I'd call it a draw, guys, because realistically, when you look back at South Carolina's offense this past season, were there some bright spots? Absolutely. Absolutely there were. Was the revitalization of Spencer Rattler's career a major, major bright spot? Absolutely, yes, it was. Was the emergence of Xavier Legette incredible to watch? Yes, it was. Was the emergence of Mario Anderson when they started finally playing him? Was that fun to watch? For sure. But, I mean, guys, if you look at the numbers, South Carolina statistically was worse on offense this year than they were last year under Marcus Satterfield. Now, did schedule have something to do with that? Maybe, but still, that's a fact that is mind-blowing. So, I don't think Dowell Loggins came in and just all of a sudden the offense was one of the best in college football. It wasn't. It wasn't. So, there were bright spots for Dowell Loggins. There were questionable moments, no doubt, throughout the season for Dowell Loggins when it comes to personnel, when it comes to play calling, right? Dowell Loggins certainly had his moments where you're wondering, hey, what's going on? On the Clemson side, I think I can say the same thing about Garrett Riley. Like, it was not what most folks expected. There were some bright spots down the stretch for sure for them. There were some moments where you're like, what the hell's going on the offensive side? So I honestly would call it a draw, guys. I'd call it a draw. I don't know that I favor one or the other. Now, Garrett Riley has a track record in college that says that he should be getting it going. He should get it going. He's done it before at a very high level. Dowell Loggins, the jury's still out. We shall see. I think there's a lot of things from this year to point to that tell you that he can be a very good OC. And again, the Dowell Loggins 10 years we mentioned many times, it'll be judged off what he does with Lenora Sellers, right? That's what it's going to come down to. But if you're asking me right now, who's a better OC after year one, Riley or Loggins? I'm going with the push right now. I know that may be a cop-out answer, but I'm going with the push, man. Neither guy did enough, in my opinion. Neither guy really did enough to separate themselves from one or the other. So, yeah. So Let's see, Austin Gregory, comparing offensive stats from last year to this year is somewhat not fair, considering it's a pretty well-known consensus the last 3 games. Tennessee, Clemson, and Notre Dame did not have Sats' hands on them. I mean, Austin, I hear what you're saying for sure. Those 3 games, like you mentioned, though, Austin, they look more like the exception and nowhere near the rule. South Carolina hadn't looked like that since those games. They just haven't. So I just still, even with that fact being true, it is crazy to think as bad as the offense was in 2022. Statistically, it was better than what the offense was in 2023. It's still hard to believe for me. Let's see. Texter says, it's Robbie Davis. Zaxby's Hall of Fame. My prediction for the 2 basketball games tomorrow night. Women's basketball versus Morgan State. South Carolina 89, Morgan State 50. Robbie, I believe the women play tonight, by the way. Men's game tomorrow. South Carolina 85, Clemson 74. Robbie going with an 11-point win over Clemson. Anyways, guys, we keep it rolling with your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well. Let's see. Austin Gregory says Beamer needs to wear a quarter zip. Maybe this will all resolve itself. Per Mike Yuva in our Discord, somebody says South Carolina kicker Alex Herrera plans to return for a 6th season. Per Mike Yuva. Again, guys, I go back to this because Big True Babalade, it was announced that he signed a deal with the Garnet Trust, which, okay, so maybe I'm taking it as I shouldn't be taking it as these guys are announcing they're returning to school. But that's how it feels. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels that, like, guys that are supposed to come back are having to announce that they're coming back. And it's like, you're supposed to come back. Where was Big Tree Babalade going to go? I mean, he's supposed to be back. You know? I don't know. Anyways, let's see. Let's see. Peyton Smith. Does Shane Beamer have a hard time cutting ties, or does he just want to do one thing at a time this offseason? Recruiting like hell until signing day, then tackle staff issues. Peyton, I think maybe he just wants to do one thing at a time. I mean, it will be stunning to me if there are no staff changes. It'll be stunning to me. The women play tomorrow. Okay. My apologies. I had no idea. Austin Gregory says, y'all aren't going to like this, but I've got South Carolina losing to Clemson 82-59. Hope I'm wrong, wronger than ever, but it's just a feeling. Coach Ford, they're extorting money, just like NFL contract negotiations. Billy Cotton, you know your team sucks when your punter gets in the portal. Well, I think you probably mean Mitch Jeter getting in the portal, right? Let's see. Guys, we got a couple voicemails. Let's keep it rolling. Voicemails are rolling in. Appreciate y'all. Y'all continue to call in. 843-790-3377. Here we go.
Hey, Chris, it's Alex. I think people calling for coaches' heads at the moment, I agree with it, but at the same time, anyone stop to think about all of these coaches that we're trying to get rid of, contracts run out at the end of this year? Talk to you later. Bye.
Alex, appreciate the call. Appreciate the voicemail. I mean, listen, that's a good point. Maybe they want to wait until the contracts end. And I mean, that very well could be part of it. Here we go. Another voicemail here.
Hey, Chris, it's Bob. Hey, man. Yeah, it's frustrating, man, but it's frustrating about Shambi not making staff changes yet, but we have to wait and see. But, man, it's not like the old days. Look at Steve Spurrier. He did it. Watching Shambi do it, but I guess he's not a fire guy, but we'll have to wait and see. Take care, Chris.
Appreciate the call, my friend. Appreciate the voicemail. I would say Shane Beamer's going to make those changes. You have to think so. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Guys, there's been a lot of smoke around potential staff changes. So I think it's interesting because you work so hard to recruit guys, you sign guys, and then you change up their coach on them. And it's like, is that really the best way to go? Is that the best way to go? Let's see. Madison Duncan, best Gamecock news show on the internet. Thanks, Chris. Madison, I appreciate you. Appreciate the kind words, man. Appreciate you greatly. You're the man. Let's see. Just scrolling through these questions from earlier in the show. Again, guys, thank you all so much for the continued love and support. Some people have said Dowell Loggins has got to go. It's crazy to me the amount of people that think Dowell Loggins should go. Crazy. Jacob E. Matt Luke was a stellar hire for Clemson. Looks like Dabo's trying to make changes for the better. Shame that we haven't done anything yet. I mean, guys, I said it yesterday. I hate how good the hires are of Matt Luke and Chris Rump. Some of these comments, man, wild. Some people just got too much time. Some people got too much time. I appreciate it either way. Let's see. My guy Bruin Nation's in here. Juices and IL is in here. Juices and IL said, I'd love to have won 8 games. 8 games, John, instead of 5. Maybe I would have stayed. Go Gamecock. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Gosh. What a time. Let's see. It's Damie says, I'm a Clemson fan, and going back to which OC was better, I think the Gamecocks OC did a better job than Clemson's. Our offense looked a little different, but not even close to what was expected. To your point, I think you could argue Dowell Loggins because of what preseason expectations were. Guys, like what happened with South Carolina's offense, it didn't stun me. It didn't stun me this year. What stunned me was it never improved. Like South Carolina's offensive line didn't stun me. And it's so funny to look back. Like I gave the O-line a D+ in the preseason and people just freaked out. It's like interesting. I talked about it. I thought the offensive line would be a question mark, but like the fact that from game 1 to game 12, it just never got better. It never got better. That was surprising to me. Guys, by the way, don't forget, next week we are getting the SEC schedule for 2024. After that, I will do my way too early predictions for the 2024 season, not just for South Carolina, but the entire SEC as well. That'll be a ton of fun. So you guys stay tuned for that. Guys, in case you missed it, it was announced this morning, Luke Doty is officially back in 2024. He signed a deal with the Garnet Trust. So Luke Doty will return. Tons of guys signing NIL deals at this point. Guys, what are the most intriguing players in your opinion that have hit the transfer portal? Is there anybody that stands out that, whether it be SEC, not SEC, that like surprise you? Coach Ford, Doty was given some sort of deal. The Garnet Trust did something. I have no idea what it was, but I have no idea, my friend. Bruce, when we start to see us picking up people in the portal, I would say, Bruce, over the coming weeks, you've got guys that are scheduling visits. I mean, they're not going to commit, right? It's Bruce, you go through recruiting all over again, right? So, I mean, it only makes sense that guys are going to visit first. They'll probably, some of them commit on the visit or what have you. So I would say over the coming weeks, Bruce, I think they'll trickle in. I think over the coming weeks, they'll trickle in. So, it's not going to be today, right? But it could be, but you never know. I think it'll be over the next month or so, right? You're going to see South Carolina fill fill the openings they have on their roster because the guys hitting the portal. Frankie in the TDC Questions channel on our Discord says, with a pay-for-play atmosphere, how much time and effort should be applied to building culture? Is it worth it for players that might be around for only 1 year? I mean, Frankie, that's a very fair question. And I asked Jake Crane about this in regards to, you hire a coach like Shane Beamer. A large part of why you hired him was the culture aspect. The question I had was, does the way that college football operates now, does it demean what a coach like Shane Beamer means to a program? Like, is it the most important thing to have great culture? Because to your point, I mean, you don't want to have bad culture, right? You certainly don't want to have bad culture. Culture is very important. Culture is a buzzword, but it is very, very important. But to your point, Frankie, it's about winning, right? I mean, you see Gamecock fans belittle it. You see Gamecock fans talk about after South Carolina loses to Clemson, well, at least we love each other. At least we love each other the most, right? At least we love each other. Culture means nothing if you're not winning. Culture means nothing. So, I mean, culture's important, don't get me wrong, but you got to win. That's what it comes down to. Winning and losing, Frankie. If Shane Beamer goes 4-8 next year, nobody's talking about the culture. Nobody's talking about the culture. Guys, that being said, we got a voicemail. Let's go ahead and get into this one.
Hey, Chris, it's John Edwards. I just wanted to get this off my chest. This is the portal open. I've been seeing a lot of people in the fan base, just truthfully, they've been, and wrongfully in my opinion, been freaking out about the number of guys leaving. But I think people need to calm the heck down and don't only look at the number of guys leaving, but look at who specifically is leaving. And here's how I look at it, and I'll get out of here. Yeah, we're losing guys, but outside of Wells and Mitch Jeter, who of significance is leaving? Most of these guys that are leaving didn't contribute or didn't get playing time. Just people need to look at who's leaving and not really the number outside of Wells and Jeter. All right, go Cox. Bye.
John Edward, full of passion and energy as always. John Edward, I appreciate the call, appreciate the voicemail. Yeah, I mean, listen, to his point, I will say this. To his point, South Carolina's had, 16 guys into the portal? And I know that you're losing bodies, as Travie points out, but I mean, he makes a point. He makes a point for sure that he makes the point that, it's outside of Juice Wells. Who have you lost that, you're losing sleep over necessarily, right? You hate to lose depth, no doubt. But I mean, if the staff is confident that they're going to be able to go out in the portal and rebuild the roster through the portal, then I mean, it'll work itself out in that regard. I just, but I get what folks are saying. Like, it'd be one thing, though, if you're just losing those guys and you're not getting anything back. I don't think that'll be the case. And I mean, naturally, guys are going to leave if they're not playing. Like, a lot of the guys that have left, they're not contributors. They're not playing. So, I think John Edward does have a good point. You don't want to lose sleep. You're not going to lose sleep over guys that aren't playing at all. Same time, though, you just got to make sure you go out in the portal and you fill those needs. You fill those needs with equal to or ideally greater than talent. Texter says, this is Eric from Anderson. I think Beamer needs to make coaching changes now, give the new coaches a chance to add their flavor to recruiting. That's a Shane Beamer decision. So, Peyton Smith, so glad Doty is back. At least we know who wide receiver 1 is going into the 2024 season. Goodness gracious. Ethan K, need to take a deep breath, Gamecock Nation. Everything will be all right. Travie, John Edward makes a point. Definitely not losing sleep over this nonsense. Frank says we have a better culture than Georgia. I bet their fans are happier. No doubt. No doubt. Austin Gregory says depth matters. Travis says still losing bodies. Coach Ford says read my comment as a reply. Okay, I think this is the one he's talking about. If all the players leaving are being invited to leave because they are not making the field and no big loss, then the Beamer evaluate and recruit that well. To your point, Coach Ford. I mean, listen, Coach Ford, we talked about it this season, last summer. South Carolina losers in the portal. I think there were lots of swings and misses, man. Admittedly, I think there were. I think there were lots of swings and misses, Coach Ford. And I think that's why you're seeing them overhaul the roster, right? I think that's why you're seeing that. Travis says, Juice is the most significant loss. Just go get dudes from the Power 5. Yeah, you got to get Power 5 talent. Got to get Power 5 talent for sure. Coach Ford says, next comment. Okay, I'm waiting on the next comment, Coach Ford. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm just reading them as they come in, man. I apologize if I'm not. Yeah. Let's see. Bruce says, need to get G.A. Mangus back as quarterback's coach, run the read option like we did with Connor Shaw. Travi, I do want to see a lot more Power 5 guys in the Group of 5 or FCS, if I'm being honest. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Frank says, Trey Knox was a bust. Would y'all agree? I had fair expectations for Trey Knox. So that's why I don't know that I'd label him a bust, Frank. I mean, after talking with Arkansas folks, I think the production he gave South Carolina was about what folks should have expected. So, Coach Ford says, did we counter offer Juice, or are we not allowed to know how they spend our money? Coach Ford, I have no clue, man. I have no clue. Coach Ford, to your point, I know he won't mind me reading this on air. Admittedly, guys, as I've told you all before, okay? As I've told you all before, I'm not speaking out against NIL, speaking out against the collectives specifically. Support the collectives, support the Gamecocks. Do with your money what you wish, right? I'm not somebody to tell you what you should be doing with your pocket. Do what you wish. But I thought this was a really, really interesting post from our friend Avery Wilkes, who used to be a columnist, right? 2-time South Carolina Journalist of the Year. Used to be a journalist for the State, the Post and Courier, all that good stuff. Avery Wilkes said this. Juice, talking about Juice Wells, Juice has gone from hero to all-time Gamecock heel and solidified himself as an NIL cautionary tale. I hate it for everyone involved, including him. And with all due respect to everyone who works in the NIL space, you'd have to be a sucker to give to a collective right now. Those are strong words. Those are very, very strong words. You'd have to be a sucker. Now, will I go that far? Not necessarily, no. Not necessarily, no. But I don't think if you're somebody who, and I'm not telling anybody how to do anything, but in my opinion, if you're running a collective, the response to that school of thinking, because there's many out there that think that way, that school of thinking, the response to that being, that's so dumb, we got to keep giving. Like, you need to understand where the common fan is coming from. You need to understand the pain and be able to respond to that and acknowledge it and hear out fans. Because I'm sure there's some people out there. One of our guys in the Discord said it best. He said, when you look at it as a gift versus an investment, it makes it much easier to stomach. Look at it as a gift, not an investment. But some people do look at it as an investment. And so to Coach Ford's point about the Juice Wells thing, Coach Ford says this: the trusts are like the first window at the drive-thru. Once they have your money, they won't care how you like the product or service. You know, it's one of those things where, again, I'll just put it to you this way. Again, I'm not going to go as far as Avery Wilkes went, but I won't blame anyone for being hesitant to give to NIL at this point after the Juice Wells thing. It makes you hesitant. It makes you hesitant. It does. Heck, I posted a clip this morning talking about the black eye that's left on NIL. And it's unfortunate because there's been a lot of great progress that's been built at South Carolina. But a situation like the Juice Wells thing really hurts. And other schools, by the way, deal with this, guys. Other schools, when their top players leave, it's like, well, where's my money going? You know, and it's just everybody's dealing with it. It's a necessary evil of college football. And, you know, I mean, it just is what it is. It is what it is. So, anyways, Kane Moore says, as bad as I hate to say it, until something changes, I'm just going to start looking at college ball through NFL glasses. Tired of rooting for guys and getting attached to guys who leave or sit out and collect our money and then leave. Feel like the coaches should be able to filter out the roster. Let players go when they want, since they can just leave whenever they want anyway. Kane, a lot of folks have voiced that frustration as well. Texter says, at the end of the day, we only had one good receiver the last few years, so who cares if Juice leaves? If we can add two more good ones to go with Harbor. I mean, guys, I will say, some folks are going to look and scoff and say that, oh, they're from Vandy. But I tell you what, if you added Jaden McGowan and Will Shepherd, even if you just added Jaden McGowan, that's going to be a nice pickup. Those two dudes, they might have been on Vandy, but you guys heard me talk about them and how good of players they were. I think those would be very solid pickups. Very, very solid. So, very solid pickups. Anyways, guys, we are approaching the end of the show. Again, cannot say thank y'all enough. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, the love, the support. You're on YouTube. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, we drop daily podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys. You can check us out there at the Spurs Up Show. Subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review. It helps to boost up the show as well. And in the meantime, follow along on social media. Content bleeding out of the eyeballs there. And guys, of course, like I mentioned, stay tuned for updates in regards to the show. Of course, with the holiday upcoming, with Christmas upcoming, there will be some changes inevitably to when we're going live, right? Some days that will be taken off. Could be some time changes, what have you. But, yeah, I know you guys will roll with the punches, and I truly do appreciate that. I see y'all in the comments. Did John ever block me? Wild. The comments never disappoint, truly. Guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.